All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of A Sip of Knowledge with Marty Duffy, Liz Rhoades, and Lew Bryson, with this week's special guest, which is Adam Spiegel from Sonoma Distilling Company. I'm going to let them introduce you to Adam a little more formally in just a moment. But real quick, before we get started, I'm Will Hookinga from Zavvy.co. And if this is your first time joining us, just want to give you a quick little guided tour of how you can interact with our hosts and guests today. So on the right, you'll see a chat box. I see a few of you already chatting in. Thomas from Gardnerville, Nevada, welcome. Thanks for joining us. So yeah, feel free to say hello. Let us know where you're tuning in from. Also, if you have a question for anyone during the presentation, you'll see a little button at the bottom that says Ask a Question. Just click that, type your question in there. We'll be keeping an eye out for those and sending them over to your esteemed hosts. And last but not least, feel free to share the event to invite your friends to come join us. There's a share button in the top right that will let you do that really easily. But with all that said, I will turn things over to Lew, Liz, and Marty now. So y'all take it away.
Yeehaw! Woohoo! Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Yeah, thank you, Will. Thanks, Martin Duffy here, reporting from Chicago. I'm a former master of whiskey for DIAGEO. I'm currently whatchamacallit, the brand representative for Glencairn Crystal out of Scotland, and a newly ordained moose. I'm part of the Moose Lodge.
Ooh.
69.
Nice.
Lombard, Illinois. So don't mess with me, Liz.
Congrats.
Yeah, congrats, Marty, on that accomplishment. You should be very proud. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining. I'm Liz Rhoades, a technical distiller and spirit consultant. I have just over a decade of experience in alcoholic beverage across a variety of products and substrates, including rum, vodka, beer, and, of course, my personal favorite, Adam. I think Adam would agree with me as well. Here is whiskey. I'm
whiskey.
Currently founder and principal at Spirit Safe Consulting. So welcome, everyone. Lew.
Howdy. I am Lew Bryson. I'm a whiskey and beer writer.
Oh, yeah. Who isn't?
Yeah, there we go.
Go, Lew.
I am freelance, but I have a steady gig with the Daily Beast. I'm a senior drinks writer at the Daily Beast, writing about largely beer and whiskey, but I also do some other things at other times. Somebody always asks every week, so I'll just get it out of the way right now. My whiskey this week is the Barrel, Infinite Barrel, released September 20th, 2019.
Good choice.
121 proof, and it's mighty tasty. Cheers.
Cheers.
My whiskey is a blend of my own from whiskeyblender.com out of Scotland. You blend it yourself with all the little characteristics online, and you name it and personalize it. Then it's sent to you, and then you drink it. So there.
That's good. That's good.
All right, young Adam.
Hi.
We are going to tear you a new one just by asking you questions.
Good. I like this. Good.
Going to blow the roof off this whole Sonoma County Distilling Company thing.
Yeah.
So tell us a little more. Now, I know, because you and I have talked about just a couple of weeks ago, I interviewed you. And but tell all of our little friends out there about how you got into it. How you got into distilling. Why Sonoma? It's full of a bunch of wine geeks.
Yeah, that's true.
Pretty though, it's pretty.
Yeah, why do grain stuff there?
Why do grain stuff there? Yeah, so I mean, my background is sort of, I went through a bit of stages and hit some hurdles in my life so far. You know, this 2008 financial crisis sort of shook everybody. And I think we all at that time were sort of like, what are we going to do with ourselves? Who are we? What do we care about? What do we want to spend money on? You know, I lost my job at that time with, you know,
millions of other people around the world. And I came to the realization that I didn't want to work for anybody else. And I also wanted to learn how to make something with my hands. I know it sounds maybe a little cliche these days, but like the idea of creating something from scratch and knowing, you know, all the intricacies of what's going to make it really good, and then spending the rest of my life to try and master this pursuit has been something that has really motivated me to, like, you know, put my comfortable shirt on and go to work every day. And so I just, it was really interesting in the early years just to sort of try and just do something, create something. And so we started making beer in the early days in a garage, and beer turned into wine. Wine turned into grappa because you have old pomace, and then grappa turned into whiskey. So it was sort of this nice little gateway drug that got me into whiskey. And that was 2008, 2009. And by about 2010, myself and an old business partner sort of realized that we were making stuff that tasted really good. And so the idea of taking something from sort of a garage sort of hobby and turning into a company was like, well, we have no idea what the hell we're doing. Let's figure this out. So I basically spent, you know, the end of 2009 and, you know, halfway through 2010 kind of figuring out how to start a distillery in California. And at that time, there was really nobody here. I mean, you know, thank God there was, you know, St. George and Charbet and, you know, Jermaine Rabon and all these people I emulated and Anchor, you know, people I cared to see and taste their products on the shelves. But, you know, there was really no rule book on how to do this. And I found early on that, you know, I had to just figure it out. I filled out paperwork. I got to kick back. I filled it out. I got kicked back. And then eventually we got started, and we were within the first, you know, 15 distilleries in California, which is really exciting because now, you know, there's 115, 120. So in 10 years, you know, the whole marketplace has gone through the roof in the state. And then within the US, we're within the first 200, 250 distilleries in the US. And now there's almost damn near 2,000. So, you know, in 10 years, this whole marketplace has sort of grown around us. And we spent really the first 3 years of our career at what was at one point called 1512 Spirits, eventually became Sonoma County Distilling, now it's Sonoma Distilling Company. We spent 3 years just sort of like taking this glorified hobby and trying to turn it into a business. And it was exciting. We made a lot of mistakes, and I'm sure Liz can appreciate that too. But, you know, burned a lot of mashes and figured out a lot of stuff. And you know, we used small barrels to start. We used 3-gallon barrels, which eventually turned into 5s, and 5s into 10s, and 10s into 15s, and then 15s, 30s, and 53s. And so it was really this great sort of edification on what, you know, what distillation is, what's important. And 3 years in, we kind of maybe dialed into systems, but our distillations were still taking 18 hours. We're using direct fired stills. Yeah. So we were doing stuff really sort of like the wrong way and the crazy way. And we faced this hard time in our career, myself and my old business partner, by about 2013, where we just had to make more juice. We were not making enough to even fit our small demand. We were not making very much, to be honest with you. And I was already working there 7 days a week, so I had to start getting paid, right? So I decided to buy him out. He left the company. And then I rebranded, and I brought in Jermaine Rabon. So I started working with Hubert in 2013. And so in 2013, I got this opportunity to work with this guy who I always heard about. He's sort of like this mystical French dude who had moved here from Cognac, you know, 3rd or 4th or 5th generation Cognac distiller, who was like hitchhiking and met his business partner and started up Jermaine Rabon Distillery.
As you do.
Yeah, as you do.
That's an amazing story. I love that.
It's a really good story. And he tells it better than I with his incredible French accent.
I was hitchhiking when I started up a pet store. That was
yeah, it's weird.
That close. That close.
It was close. And then 2013, started working with Hubert and really sort of just retooled everything, redesigned our cuts. You know, really just started at that point to really start fresh with our barrel aging programs. Took a lot of cognac influences and sort of traditional brandy and whiskey production influences and tried to make something different. And so the long-winded answer is like, why Sonoma County? You know, Sonoma County is known for great wine and great beer and great food because of our agricultural influences. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm right off the 101. I can get any number of tons of grain that I could possibly want at any given time because it comes right on a major thoroughfare. I'm not on some beautiful windy, road in the middle of nowhere. Access to tanks and know-how and fermentation labs and all of that is all here too. And really, this area has just been on the epicenters or the change agents for a lot of things. I mean, you think about Lagunitas and Russian River Brewing Company. You think about a lot of the wines who are winning awards over in France and tricking the French into liking California wines. I mean, we've been doing stuff like that in this region for so long. So why the hell not whiskey? And so we're California's really whiskey only distillery. I think there's maybe a couple others who have sort of sprouted up since then, but we're really one of California's only whiskey focused distillery. And we're actually now, because of our new size and scale, you can see a bunch of 53s behind me. I hope there's no earthquake. We're actually one of the largest distilleries in the state now too, because we've now taken sort of everything I did on a nano scale and made it a bit more micro. So we've got a 3,000 gallon foresights we got from Speyside, Scotland. We've got 4 250 gallon Alembics, which is our very traditional style still that we use. And we're just here, 5, 6, 7 days a week, just trying to make whiskey.
So is it, I was going to say, when you started mentioning Sonoma, I thought, wow, that's actually also a great place for visitors.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how many millions of people, especially since that movie Sideways came out a number of years ago. But last time I was in Sonoma, that you couldn't. It always looked like small mobs at every winery, so that made a lot of sense.
Unless you were making Merlot after Sideways, and everything went downhill after that. But though my mother used to drink Merlot, and I still always have a soft spot for it. I think it's a great wine. But
I do too. You can't listen to Paul Giamatti.
Yeah, he doesn't know. He didn't know crap.
What does he know? He was a Lady in the Water.
Weirdo.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so tourism is definitely a big part of it. The part that became sort of prohibitive for us in the early years, and why I kind of got a bit more involved in trying to help out the guild where I could, the California Craft Distillers Guild, is that we couldn't even sell directly until like 3 years ago. So for the first 7 years of our existence, we used to make people sign a waiver that said they were leaving the state of California in 90 days with the bottle that they were purchasing from the distillery. And so we've never really had the opportunity to really invest heavily until the last couple of years in an actual tasting room and really understanding what the heck that's going to mean, because we've had all these limitations on what we can and cannot do. We couldn't ship until the pandemic. Now, unfortunately, the only bright side of the pandemic so far that I can think of is that I can now ship in the state of California, but that's only until the emergency action gets taken away. If, the governor's probably the second that the all clear sign is gone, no more shipping in the state of California.
Just hovering over that
green and red button
with a red pen. I can't wait to X that out.
There's no date officially. It's an emergency action. It's basically just to sort of give us a little extra lifeline during what is otherwise an unprecedented time. And so we've got that, which is great, but we can only ship 3 bottles per person per day. So you can go to any winery at any given time. You can buy truckloads of wine, but in spirits, I can ship you and sell you 3 bottles.
Spirits, it's like dynamite. You can't be too careful when the consumers have too much booze.
Well, you're coming from Pennsylvania, where I went to college out there. So, the state liquor stores was an interesting, though they have the drive-through beer stores. I always used to appreciate that in PA. Where
and actually for producers, for small distillers, it's pretty great.
Yeah, of course, because you get everything.
Yeah, they've been allowed to sell on premise a long time. They did just shipping got a lot easier. I was going to say I'm actually getting emails from Discus fairly regularly, updates on liquor laws being loosened up during the pandemic, and some states are now starting to make it permanent because they're seeing that it's not actually causing damage to the social fabric. Maybe we could do this.
Well, I mean, the best way to test it is like by fire, right? You got this thing that happens. you know, people are not running in the streets, and there's not like orgies in the middle of the 101.
Well, and also give politicians a little back door to say, oh, sorry, I tried it during the pandemic, and you know, the pandemic, hell, everything goes to hell in a handbasket, and I'm over here, and I don't know what I'm doing. And
our politicians don't sound like that. Our politicians, were. Sorry, I just want to make sure we're clear about it.
Even Lightfoot sounds like this to me. It's just natural.
No, I mean, that's so. We're also hoping, right? So with these, 2,000 distilleries, which unfortunately a lot of them are going to start going the way of the dodo, unfortunately, because they're just. I see it too. I mean, it's 30% of our exposure today was in on premise, so liquor store, bars and restaurants. Those were 30% of our business. Off premise, bars, liquor stores, and mom and pop bottle shops. That's made up 70% of our business. Those folks are doing okay, and they're shipping in the state already, and they're doing fine. But the idea that we can't ship across state borders then becomes the next question. Like if we start allowing shipping in the state of California, we're going to start trying to push for reciprocity to other states. So why is it that I can't now ship to New York, or why can't I ship to other places?
It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't, but it will change. It happened in wine, but you had to have a lobby to do it. We have a pandemic, unfortunately, and maybe that'd be the thing that sort of as a catalyst to get this thing going. But the reality is, if I can connect with people all over the country, it's to my benefit to do that. And, if you leave Sonoma and you try something you really like and you go back home, like, why can't you keep on receiving product, whether it be beer or wine or spirits, that you tasted on your trip?
How much do you think are the big distributors, the big distributing houses, kind of fighting that, though? Because eventually, I mean, I think here in Illinois, that's one of the big problems, is that the big distributors have been who have huge. I mean, they're usually owned by either millionaires or billionaires, and they're fighting. They have the money to fight with the state or influence the state against self-distribution,
right?
Or being able to just ship stuff out, because it ends up hurting their bottom line. You know what I'm talking about?
So they definitely are fighting it. I mean, I know that because I've seen it live. While we were trying to get even just the direct-to-consumer part of our business started through, the ABC and all the advocacy we did there at the state level, the distributors were pushing back. Unfortunately for them, right now they're a bit hurting. They're half of their workforces are for the most part furloughed, or if not more. And so they're going to be hurting for a while too. But I think the thing that they miss, and I know they know this, but they just don't want to hear it, is that with this extra money, I'm not going to become a millionaire myself, necessarily. I'm not going to be, doing, back swims through, gold, the blooms. So it's like, at the end of the day, we're going to spend money on benefits for our employees, more R&D, the ability to lower costs on the shelf, like all of those things that help them sell more bottles, because selling a $60 bottle is not going to sell as fast as selling a $50 bottle or selling a $40 bottle. And so, the price support that we can give is largely based on our revenue. And so if you help increase our revenue, it's not like we're going to be millionaires. No. So I think they're figuring that out. It takes time. Everything takes a long time. And I think at the end of the day, with this much support, there's a lot of people doing distilling now. And so now that a lot of people are doing it, we have a larger voice than we did before.
And that, like, in terms of lobbying, is that something that would go through the guild? Does the guild support something like that, or?
It goes through the guild, but even within the guild, you've got personalities. I mean, California is a gigantic state. We've got 35 million people in it, and it takes 11 hours to drive from the most southern tip to the most northern part. So it's a big old state, and so the personalities and the interests of the guild sometimes can get a bit convoluted with, I'm in Orange County, and my Orange County local municipality won't allow me to do X, Y, and Z. So how is the guild helping me perpetuate what I want to do in Orange County? Like, I hear that all the time from people in Southern California. And so they started their own, marketing guild that eventually turned into a full-fledged guild. And so now you've got these two California guilds that are sort of working on their own agendas. And eventually I think there's going to be this sort of like, you know, commingling again. There's no reason not to. But yeah, the guild, everything goes to the guild at this point. I try not to have any sidebars if I don't need to. I mean, my local state assembly woman and my state senator are people who've been to the distillery. My congressman's been here before, you know, so I've shown them what we can do. And we're in a little town called Rohnert Park, which is, you know, sort of wedged between Santa Rosa and Petaluma. So we're not in like, you know, downtown Sonoma. So we're definitely something you have to drive to. You have to know that we're here. But once you do, it's a nice destination. We've got, you know, we had a nice tasting room, which is probably going to be shut down at least to the end of the year if everything is unfortunately going the way that it is. And so, you know, we're going to continue to try and engage with people remotely. I'm actually going to start offering these virtual tastings. So it's this new thing I'm going to launch within the next week. And I built these little tasting kits that we can ship within the state of California. And so I'm going to set up probably once or twice a month tastings, you know, through a similar format like this. People can ask questions. I'm going to walk them through the distillery. I'll probably do one of those like awkward, like, you know, selfie stick sort of walkthroughs.
Just spin around.
Yeah. And then, like, you know, it's going to be really fun to talk to them about distillation, answer questions, you know, engage with them. And then maybe they'll sign up for the club. You know, our club, we re-engaged during this pandemic too, because we had some time to do it and we actually can ship now to people. So we said, you know what, let's do it. What's
your tasting kit look like? Is it just small bottles of?
Yeah, so it's 4 200 mLs. It's a little pipette. It's some cherrywood smoked barley, because we actually cherrywood smoke our own barley on site. Not this big, but it's
they don't need that much.
They don't need that much. And then yeah, we built these little sets, and we're gonna go live on our website real soon. And it's a good way to, again, I think it's a good way to engage with people. I'm also going to recommend that people maybe set up their own little tasting parties. Like they can have parties with their friends where like several of them can purchase and sort of sit and talk and try. And, you know, it's going to be a nice way to sort of let them know that they can connect even if it's from afar.
Yeah, they should really think real hard about what kind of glassware they use.
Well, I think, I mean, I have this glass that we use. It has this sort of tulip-shaped tops. And sort of balloon bottoms out.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah. It was funny. Liz, you would have loved this. I was talking to Marty last week, and he was asking me questions about Glencairn. And he was like, "What do you like about the Glencairn glass?" I was like, "Well, you know, it's like when you smell it, you feel like you can direct the smells. Like I feel like it's sort of like a carb on a, you know, you're taking a hit of the peace pipe, you know, you got a can to really." And you could just sort of tell him on the other side. He's like, I can't use any of that. Like, there's nothing I can use.
Well, when you said you started, it excited you physically.
Wow, that's when unrecord.
Ours is that's a family website.